Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
Hey guys, Teenager Joel here. I just read an article in Newsweek magazine that scared the living daylights out of me. Scientists warn of a coming ice age, global freezing, and famine. Hope you guys in the future are okay. Hey, that's Teenager Joel speaking. How back in the day he read an article and is hoping we're all okay in the future. And I think we're okay. Well, today, whenever you're watching this, we have a terrific show available, ready for you. In fact, in the upper corner of the screen, you're going to see a QR code. And I'd like for you to, if you're using your laptop or a desktop to watch the show, and you got a cell phone out, just put your phone on, the camera on, and then watch the show through the camera. You're going to see a lot of cool stuff that comes up on your through the QR code, and you're going to see that, well, it's a link tree to a whole lot of information, a way to get in touch with our guest, our special guest tonight, who is David Webb. Now, David, he has been in the media for many years. You've probably seen him. When you see his face in a few moments, you're going to see someone that you recognize. He's at a SiriusXM show, and he's what we call a Renaissance man. And in fact, that's going to be the theme of our show. I have something here that a Renaissance man is someone who is highly skilled and knowledgeable in a wide range of different fields: art, science, literature, philosophy, physical pursuit, intellectual curiosity. We're going to talk a lot about curiosity this evening. And creativity, adaptability, flexibility, and the pursuit of excellence across diverse areas of life. We have folks like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Banneker, who actually was the one who redesigned or designed Washington, D.C., living in Ellicott City, Maryland. George Washington Carver, Thomas Young there's a book about him called The Last Polymath alive, and a fantastic individual. Mayim Bialik, an actor. You probably saw her on Big Bang Theory, but she's a neuroscientist, actor, director, author. And these Renaissance people are not just dabblers. They're individuals that are often drawing from different fields of discipline to solve problems in something that they're dealing with. And so we're going to talk about the curse of being a polymath, the blessing of being a polymath, and how to explain when someone says, "What do you do?" How does a Renaissance person respond to that question? But first, we're going to take a look at a song that I think you're going to enjoy. It's kind of the theme song of this show. It's called the Mischief Maker Attitude. Ready? Here it is.
In a world where the questions were few, rose up creatives who saw something new. While others stayed silent, they boldly spoke, breaking the tension with humor and hope. Just a bit crazy, that might be the prize. Boring routine is where wonder dies. Value the mischief maker's latitude. Arms open wide on gratitude. Asking what if in the quiet room. Listen for the music, a cheerful tune. Strange yet wise, misunderstood. That's the Mischief Maker attitude. When problems come dressed in tradition's disguise, meet it head on with curious eyes. Not for the title, not for the fame. Discover solutions, not someone to blame. See every setback as part of a game. Examine dumb rules without any shame. In crowded spaces or corners alone, new voices are welcomed like seeds freshly sown. Trust isn't earned, it's freely shared, but gaslighting frauds are rarely spared. Each conversation a door swung wide. Plenty of fun on the curious side. Value the mischief maker's latitude. Arms open wide, all gratitude. Asking what if in the quiet room. Listen for the music, a cheerful tune. Strange yet wise, misunderstood. That's the Mischief Maker attitude. Some say be quiet, some roll their eyes, but mischief makers refuse to compromise. They stir up the waters others have ignored, turn broken systems into something restored. Not rebels in name, but rethinkers by trade. Builders of paths where no maps were laid. I'm not an expert, not trying to be, but I'm a student of all I see. So here's your invite, plain and clear. Bring your quirks, your questions, your cheer. The world gets better when we intrude with the Mischief Maker attitude. Value the Mischief Maker's latitude. Arms open wide, all gratitude. Asking what if in the quiet room. Listen for the music, a cheerful tune. Strange yet wise, misunderstood. That's the Mischief Maker attitude.
Well, there we have it, the Mischief Maker attitude, and we have David Webb with us. That's a song I wrote, I guess probably a short while ago, but it's now I just dropping it on iTunes, Amazon, all over the place. So maybe want to download it and make it a part of your shuffle if you like. David, are you a mischief maker?
Yeah, I am. And now I don't know whether I want to be at BB King Blues on Beale Street or maybe somewhere on Bourbon in the House of Blues or wherever, but I'm ready. Let's go.
Okay. Now, what is the most important childhood memory that you have that has helped to shape you today in who you are?
Well, there are a lot of great childhood memories. So first thing is I have not just had, but I had a great childhood and I have a great family, great circle of friends. I'm blessed because I have friends that I've had since I was a child and we still talk. We talked as recently as a couple of days ago, but of a lot of the memories, there's always the talk of what are the formative ones. And since you talked about the Renaissance man, I'll share this one with you that actually happened in high school after a lot of great memories. But I owe this one, and the hat tip goes to a man named Carlo Di Lorenzo, who was my Western civilization teacher in high school. And what happened was I was a mischief maker. not necessarily in the best way like you are, but I was a little bit of a, mischievous kid in a Jesuit all boys school. And one day, because back then you could do this, Mr. Di Lorenzo Carlo, or Dilo, to those that really got close to him, threw the Western Civ book at me. By the way, it was pretty thick. It was a pretty good sized book. And
He threw
I
the
caught
actual
it.
book at you.
He threw the book at me. When they say throw the book at him, he believed in
I
throwing
thought
the
that was a
book at me.
metaphor.
No, he really did throw the book at me. But I mean, maybe it was part of being an athlete. I was a good catcher, in many ways, and I just kind of reached up and caught the book. And the reason I was making mischief, I was in the back of the class, where the mischief makers begin and where we belong, and kidding around with my friend Andy. After class, he said, "Stop and see me," or somewhere along the way, and he stopped me after class and he said, "Look, you're a smart kid. I think you're a good kid. But I want to explain something, and you have two choices in life to make. You can either go down the path and be a kid and take other chances, do maybe not all the wrong things, but some more of the wrong things. Or I'm going to explain something to you." And it was based on who we were studying at the time. And it was Machiavelli, the Medici family, and more. And he began to explain the concept of a Renaissance man, someone who sought knowledge, someone who sought solutions, someone who dug into things. I mean, you gave a really excellent definition of what it is, and I'm not claiming to be all those things. But the principle was that in life, you don't want to be so linear. You want to broaden your horizons. You want to dig into things. You want to learn as much as possible. And at times in your life, that will come to benefit you. Now, maybe it doesn't, but once you have knowledge, you own that knowledge and no one can take it from you. And that's what really began this. And it still goes on today. I still find new things, and maybe sometimes I rehash old things or a new spin on something. But it's also about just not turning away anything for the sake of knowledge. By the way, sometimes knowledge that you really don't necessarily agree with or like, because knowledge is knowledge. And if you have fear, then you're putting yourself backwards or pushing yourself backwards. Look, I give an example. I'm a book collector. I love books. I have some old books, some great books, some very somber books. I have the sermons from Dachau, one of the Nazi prisons. I have a copy of Mein Kampf. I have Sun Tzu's, right? Lessons in Leadership, Bastiat, Hayek, you name it. I also just have fun books, books that are good reads, science fiction, Ursula K. Le Guin, you name it. The idea was that I wanted to broaden more and more. So whether it was Western Civ or English literature, I had to take Latin, Spanish, French, physics, all these things and more, or even learn in sociology, political science. I got into what I guess I would call the art of learning constantly. And it's what I do on a daily basis for a profession. I have to learn a topic about a guest, find the relevant questions for my audience, whatever the case may be. But it's really about constantly expanding, not contracting.
Now, what folks, as you're watching this live, one of the benefits of being a part of the live show is you can actually put in your questions. So if you have any questions for David Webb, please write them. And if it's germane to the topic, and our topic tonight is about being a Renaissance person, if it's germane to the topic, we will then introduce it to the show, and then David will respond to it. Now, in terms of your childhood, can you kind of give us some texture of what your childhood was like, and what was important to you at that time?
Well, the first part of my childhood and one of my strongest memories is where I grew up in the island of Jamaica. And as a young kid, I mean, my world was pretty significant. I was on a farm with my family. We had a lot of land around us, and there was history on the land because we had been there for generations. And growing up with that, I was given the understanding of who we were and also the community around us. So that was really important to me. Look, we had, and it's an odd story, but it's what it is. We had a private cemetery on the property, and back then they built them with these huge, almost like mausoleum tops. And in a hot summer, I would lay out on the cool stone. But after a while, I began to wonder about what was all of this? How did I get here? And I got more and more curious. And that went on through my life as I learned more about my family's legacy. Members of my family come from different continents. There's such a mixture in my family. The history of my family tied to the island of Jamaica. The one of my ancestors is a national hero of Jamaica, the House of Parliament, the Gordon House, named after George William Gordon. These on the $10 bill. We don't have a $10 coin anymore. So moments of pride like that, but then understanding how he got there. He led a slave rebellion. And because he led a slave rebellion as an educated half black man, a mixed race man, and the way it was treated after that illegally under law, it led to greater rebellions and what's known in history as the Morant Bay Rebellion, and others joined in. So there was a history given to me as I was a child that there was a responsibility to know who you are, where you come from, and then to use it properly. And look, we're kids. Kids get in trouble. We do all the things kids do. We don't always follow the rules. But with that framework around me and my grandparents and my parents and friends and neighbors, I really had that kind of drive and had it instituted in me that there is more that you should try to offer the world, no matter who you are, whether you're a farmer, a financier, anywhere in between, whatever it is you do. And mostly the common phrase today is leave it better than when you found it. And that's guided me a lot through my life. So the childhood memory is really a progression, not just a single memory. There's lots of single memories. We'd be doing a show for, I don't know, the next week, and I think people would tune out, go to bed. But it was really about just evolving constantly and realizing that it doesn't stop ever in your life.
Now, did you, any part of your family, any members of your family in the history had anything to do with the Maroons?
There were some Maroons in the family as well. We had a very wide range. I have a grandfather who was born in India, a
Hmm.
great aunt who was from Hong Kong, the Jamaican side of it. We had the Scottish side. The Scottish
Wow.
side even ties to the United States, where the Scottish members of my family, my ancestors, the Donaldsons, went to Gilbertsville, New York, and with the Gilbert family founded that town in upstate New York. So there was such a wide range of the history of my family. And I got to tell you, at times, I'm not claiming to be the only one. I'm not. I have my family and a big family worldwide. But sometimes you feel like, wow, I have got to live up to that. And I'm not sure if I can. I'm not sure if I still can, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And it ties into that whole Renaissance man principle. What Dilo did, what Carl DiLorenzo was among many of my great teachers, and I was very fortunate, was a man who saw no limitations in what his students could achieve. And from Western Civ, it permeated through, I would say, all my classes. And I wasn't the best student. You talk about your early days, and we all made our mistakes. I wasn't always the best student, but when I dug into something, I wanted to know everything about it. Didn't always get it, by the way, but at least I wanted to.
So you came to U.S. Was it New Jersey, New York?
Came to New Jersey, came to
Uh-huh.
Jersey City, New Jersey, went back and forth over a number of years. And then when it came time for high school, really eighth grade into high school, that was when I spent more of the year in
Mhm.
school. And I was fortunate enough to apply, do a higher achievement program, and get into St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City, an all boys Catholic school run by the Jesuits, where they focused on developing young men into better citizens, better people. And there was an element of, in a good way, elitism. You wanted to
Mhm.
be elite in the good way, like an elite ball player, an elite mathematician, an elite runner, whatever it is you wanted to do. You needed to take that approach that you were going to be the best at it. So along with the parental was also the great teachers, the students. We had all the things in high school, mischievous kids, good kids, mixed range of kids. And it was just so nice to have that atmosphere that sometimes you don't appreciate when you're in it. But when you go back later or when you think back later, you go, wow, I remember that time. And now I see those kids walking in Jersey City when I'm up there, and we still have a place in Jersey City, and I see them walking to school with their jackets and their letter sweaters. And I'm thinking, man, was I that young ever?
It's incredible how that happens.
Yeah.
We have Lenny Fernandez, and folks, when you do write in a question or a comment, please identify where you're from, because I know we have people from India, I get Japan, Australia, UK, Germany, Canada, all over the place, US. And so it'd be really cool if you just share a little bit where you're from. Just list the state, if it's US or a country. And Lenny Fernandez is saying, my parents are from Suriname and Jamaica, and I was encouraged to think beyond the obvious. And that led me to become an astrophysicist. How do you encourage a child, given the need in public school, to make everyone come out the same?
I do a lot of education based, not just broadcasting, but work with groups over time, as you know, Joel. And of course, with Black History 365, which was one of the primary reasons we became close friends. And in education, there's the schooling, there's all the things. But one of the things my parents gave me was the best defense against limitations. They, one, made sure I studied. Sometimes I didn't want to. They wanted me to have the defense of knowledge, knowing who I am, what I should be focusing on. So that guidance and those boundaries were key. Parents are the key to this. There will always be someone out there trying to influence you, egg you in a direction, make a bad decision. I've not always made the greatest decisions, but overall, I think I'm in the plus side, and hopefully by quite a bit. But when something negative came at me, because I had a better understanding from my parents of who I am and what's around me, they didn't hide the world. They gave me the very real world, but I had to understand more and more. And therefore, bad influences, negative influences, maybe unknown influences, you're not sure what's going to happen here. I was able to steer myself clear for the most part. And the thing is, I could go back home. I could say, you know what, mom, dad, maybe a close relative or friend, and we had close friends to the family. I'm not sure about this. And that's something that people should do with their kids. They need to know that they have an environment that they can go back to rather than accept what's being put in front of them publicly.
Yeah, I was reading an article just the other day, and a study was done, quite an extensive study from what I could understand, about what are the main indicators of success for a child becoming an adult, and they distilled it down to chores. Having chores as a child helps to teach discipline. And any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Didn't like some of them right off the bat. On a farm, there were animals to be taken care of, learning to milk the cow, the chicken coop, and all the other things that went with it. Later on, I realized that I was learning not just discipline, but responsibility. In other words, you have a responsibility, and no matter what your day is like, your morning is like, your night was like, that's your responsibility when you wake up in the morning or later in the day. And that is so important because just like in the military, when you go into the military, and I did, it's not to break you, but it's to break you down and build you up so that you understand, yes, your mission set, who you are, what you want to do, but have the responsibility to follow through.
Wisdom, folks. I hope you're taking notes here. We have Mel has said, in the fourth grade, my mother and I went to a parent-teacher meeting, and my teacher went on describing my behavior as obnoxious. My mother corrected her and said, no, it was not obnoxious. I was precocious. And as a teacher, she should know the difference and encourage me not to misjudge me. My mother didn't want my enthusiasm and interest to be stifled. Any comments on that?
Yeah, there was times when I was a trouble kid, and I was good at it, by the way. I was really good at getting away with things. One of the things I did goes back to the fifth grade, and this led to an interaction between my mother and the teachers. And my mom, dad was there too, but mom was mom. And in this case, in Mr. Fallon's class, I liked the Hardy Boys series and crime novels and Sherlock Holmes and a lot of those things. So I was a little bit of that precocious, and I loved to read. So I was a head reader. I had just that ability. So during the math class, I put the book in the middle of the math book. I got an A in the class, but I also read almost the entire series of mysteries through the semester. That got me in trouble, not because I just read the book, but because I wasn't paying attention and I was still getting an A. So this was a conundrum for the teacher. My parents didn't stand up for me as much as they stood up for the bad practice I had carried out of reading the book. Okay, I got credit for reading the book. I got credit for the A, but then I got in trouble because I forgot the responsibility of paying attention, respecting the teacher. And I had to actually go back and retake my tests at times to prove that I really did earn it. So I learned a lot about in that interaction. And by the way, it was a great series. Really loved it.
I've often thought that discipline is the root of spontaneity. For instance, if someone is a concert pianist and they're at a party and there happens to be a piano there at the party, and the group says, "Hey, tickle the ivories and play a song for us, and any suggestions? What do you want to hear?" And someone says, "Danny Boy, I want to hear Danny Boy," and the person goes into the most beautiful rendition of Danny Boy. And no notes, no pre-planned or understanding what was going to come up, the title of the song. And it's because of 9 to 12 hours a day practicing for how many years. That discipline is the root of the spontaneity of that person. And many people, want to be spontaneous, but don't want to pay the price for discipline. Any thoughts on that?
What you said about the study, the practice, and I don't have any musical talent. Boy, do I appreciate great musicians. I can go to an opera and appreciate the art. I had an experience, I think it was about 2 years ago, when one of the great Latin performers, Arturo Sandoval, who I've gotten a chance to meet and speak with, similar situation at a lunch at a university, went up and started playing a song he'd never played before. And afterwards, just a conversation between a group of us, I did ask him, "What do you mean you've never played this song? You played it as if you wrote it right there on the piano, if it was your song." And when he said he could feel the music and he could feel the heart of the singer because he appreciated the song, and I wish I could remember the name of it right now. It came out in him because it was always somewhere there from his memory and his knowledge of the musician. And that's the art. That's the art of letting yourself go and then taking a risk. He could have missed a few notes. I wouldn't have known the difference. Maybe he did. But the idea was that he let himself go and he let himself do something he loved and incorporated it and brought somebody else in through their art. And I think there's something to that is just a combination of the art and the science, and then feeling the keys and playing the music and just letting others join in with you. So you don't notice the little mistakes or the errors or the little difference in the song or a note, but you hear the overall symphony.
That's profound. It truly is. And it's amazing to watch someone, whether it's sports, science, biology, and they hold court for a little bit, and they share things right off the cuff, but it's been a lot of study, a lot of hard work, a lot of practice into it. And I think that's a really big element in terms of becoming a Renaissance person.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And in whatever you do, if you're taught, When I interview people, I'm interviewing people about serious topics. Sometimes it's a little less serious, whatever it is. But I found that if someone is talking about something they love,
Hmm.
something they do, I've interviewed you. We're turning the tables on me now, but I've interviewed you, and when we're talking about what you do, what you love, it comes out because now you're talking about your expertise.
Hmm. Well, folks, we're going to take a break because we have a sponsor, the Rosetta Universe. And so, Mel, let's hear about the Rosetta Universe. And when we come back, we're going to talk about curiosity.
I scraped the dirt out of the carved inscriptions after L.T. Bouchard unearthed the Rosetta Stone near the Nile. Incredible moment. Wish you were there. Help the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit Project transform an ancient artifact, the Rosetta Stone, into a modern metaphor for problem solving. This is life-changing.
Have it. You heard from one of the soldiers that from the Napoleonic Egyptian military campaign, who was quote unquote present when the Rosetta Stone was unearthed on the west bank of the Nile. And I'd like for you to go to the link tree above, use the QR code. It'll take you to a website, 3 words, chiefmischiefmaker.com. That's chiefmischiefmaker.com. And that will give you a list of items to go through. You'll be able to connect with David Webb, our guest this evening, and be sure to find out how to get a hold of him in terms of if you want him to speak somewhere or at an event, or you just want to follow what he's doing on SiriusXM or on Fox News channel. But the Rosetta Universe is a project that you want to learn about. It's number 1 on the link tree. Now, David, it's, when it comes to the whole idea of a Renaissance person, we think about we've all heard of the purpose-driven life. What about the curiosity-driven life? What does that mean to you, to be a person who is motivated, driven, maybe sometimes by curiosity?
Well, I don't like to be bored. And as I see things around me, I want to know how it works. I loved physics because it's the science of how things work. And whatever it is you like or do, maybe something you don't even understand, curiosity, even if you don't figure it out. I don't figure everything out. By the way, I was notorious for taking things apart as a kid, but yet I preserved my toys because I wanted to put them back together so my parents didn't know I was taking them apart along the way. And I've done that with electronics. I've done that with things. It was just something I like to do. I like to take them apart. For those of you that remember Radio Shack, the Tandy Corporation, I was a notorious visitor to the show to the store because I'd try to find ways to create things and see if I could make a duplicate. The idea of being curious, whether it's for knowledge in whatever way, it's fun. I mean, it's really a fun way to grow and expand your mind. Think about it. You're in a social setting, you're at a party, you're wherever you may be. It could be a barbecue, and you're having conversations, right, about sports and life and work and whatever. The more you broaden your horizon, the more you bring to the table. And one of the things that I've had to learn, frankly, I had to grow into it and learn a little bit more to do is realize that uh, you're not the expert on everything, but you can offer a perspective. And I have a few, we all have our little rules in life. One of mine is that, a smart man or woman for that matter, but a smart person's usually right. But an intelligent person knows they're not right all the time.
Hmm.
And that's a part of it. It's understanding that. And I say that to my audience. I have a caller who says, hey, I have a question about this. And I don't know, but I will look it up. And if I can't get it by the next segment, if I can't get it by tomorrow, I'll at least post it. Maybe I'll post it on social media. I interact with my listeners that way. And a whole part of curiosity is to listen. I love listening to people who know they're using their strengths. They're telling their story. And I find callers, people who sometimes email me, comment, they offer me advice as well. They're giving me knowledge. If somebody chooses to participate with me, and I have a very interactive show every day on radio, then they're trusting me. So I've got to give them that trust.
Now, you talked about you've been on the radio, TV for a number of years. What prepared you for that? And you're known for your political commentating and everything else. Even this is a politics-free zone on the Mischief Maker broadcast. I love the way you think. I've listened to you many times and have learned a lot from you. What helped you prepare you for that, for broadcasting, and to be able to not know necessarily what the next question is going to be or the next comment, and be nimble enough to handle that?
First of all, you're never fully prepared. You are never fully prepared. You can read, you can back up, you can have stacks of paper. I have multiple screens and more. How I got into radio was an accident. It literally was not the intent. I was on my way to hopefully becoming a Marine pilot. It was something I love to fly. It's an aptitude I have. And then this music radio, which is where I started, journey came along. So I spent about 10 years in the music and entertainment side. I had a lot of fun. Think about it as being an irresponsible youth making money, supporting yourself. And I am very lucky. I'm blessed. I have worked in the top 10 markets. I worked in Boston, New York, Dallas, Houston, and then into syndication and now satellite. Now, that's not the usual story, but why I say that is there's a luck element to it. There's the hard work to perfect your craft part of it. And all of that has to come together. And it really is about, it really does go to Renaissance man curiosity, wanting to learn. And every time I interviewed an artist, and I've interviewed a lot of music artists, known a lot of famous artists over the years, actors, entertainers, I didn't just want to learn about the movie, the discography. This is the song list, the first album, the second album. I would dig for more about them and want to know more. So when I asked them a question, they would often get personal. I mean, imagine this. For those of you that know who the world's first supergroup is, that's a trivia question. It was Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. And I became very good friends with Greg Lake, especially, knew Carl Palmer, knew Keith Emerson for decades. Blessed to know some of the really great musicians out there, in part because of family, again, and circumstance. I'm not special or anything. But decades after we'd known each other, while I was doing a show with Willie D from the Ghetto Boys, a gangster rap group, but actually a local show in Houston, I introduced Greg Lake to Willie D on the radio. And I put them together because I told them about each other. And here's a rock group and a rapper and gangster rap and the Ghetto Boys. And yet they're having a conversation about people. And I kind of sat back and went, wow. Similarly, I was around a lot of astronauts and still am to some degree, but Alan Shepard, the first American in space, was a good friend and one of my, really just a fun guy to have on the radio. And he would tell stories. And I think I might have told you this once, Joel, that in my studio in 1994, he described what it was like to actually shed a tear on the moon. I've shared that audio with audiences over time because he felt comfortable to tell a story that was personal, that he could share. And that's what you really want people to do, to be themselves.
Now, their position in life attracts a lot of insincere people. What did you know or understand natively within you how to approach a conversation, a relationship, a friendship with someone who is very well known?
Don't ask for anything.
Hmm.
When I interview someone, I've interviewed presidents, people new to the media scene. I had a young lady who, Carmen JC is her name, who I found her fascinating in her commentary, and I had her on my show. It really just go into it open, really get to know as much as you can about the topic, build a relationship that way. Now, some last a short time, some last a lifetime, and everywhere in between. So if you're open to them, it will develop. If there's a genuine connection on a particular topic, that's how a lot of my experts and guest subject matter experts, that's how they come back to the show. They want to come back because they feel as if there they can be more themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They can, excuse me, they can agree or disagree. This isn't about you and I have to agree on everything. This is a investigation into the topic and not an interrogation of the person.
The thing I've noticed about you is that there's not an angle you're trying to push. You're just interested in the truth and something that is sustainable under rigorous investigation and thrives under that. And that's what I love about you. There's not an agenda that you're trying to push, from what I've experienced. What has informed that?
We all have our preferences, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have our things that our desired outcomes. Whether it's we have a preference in music, for example. I happen to have a wide range. I think I just prefer good music, well performed. But in anything in life, we have preferences. The difference for me is to not let a preference become a bias against exploring what others think and why. And as you know, the main slogan for my show is "Truth is the authority," but it has to be backed by facts, and facts
Mm-hmm.
require context. And a lot of times in life, there's not a closed end to that
Mm-hmm.
there has to be something open for further investigation or an evolution or a change in perspective. I've had people change my mind on things, and I actually appreciate that. A friend of mine who was a former police commissioner knew that I was a tough on crime guy. Bernie Kerrick, who
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately recently passed away, former police commissioner in New York. And after Bernie went to jail, came out, wrote his book. We sat down for an interview. By the time the interview was over, he had changed my mind on the death penalty
Huh.
by having a conversation from someone who'd been not on death row, obviously, but someone who'd been in the system, a high profile person, but someone who was just a man who saw changes and reasons. And by the time he came out, it's not that I stopped believing in certain forms of punishment, but I had a greater understanding of it.
Hmm. That's quite a story. Kathleen Leffert says a lot of people look for their niche or purpose in life, but most seldom achieve it. What made you different?
It's a great question. It really is. I'm not that different. And I achieve it every time I do something that turns out well. Maybe not necessarily the way I thought it would, but that it turns out well, whether it's a conversation in sports. I played a lot of sports. I enjoyed it. It was, something I really liked to do. So I wasn't the best diver. I wasn't the best football player. I wasn't the best tennis player. Pretty good in racquetball. I will say that. I wasn't the best either. But when I achieved levels and maybe you max out, intellectually, physically, or in some way, that is an achievement. Achievements come in different levels and different definitions. And it really comes down to that combination for me personally of honesty, integrity, and just wanting to find a point where, you know what, I did my best to get there. I don't know where it goes, if it goes any higher, but I did my best.
Kathleen, great question. Now, are there any stories you can tell, like when you're in the music industry, that still make you laugh today? That experiences that maybe the everyday person like myself, that would never have that kind of experience.
Oh, there are lots of them. There are a lot. Some of the ones that stand out are things that may not happen again. Unique moments. I don't know if a lot of people out there know about Spinal Tap, the movie, the band,
Mhm.
the movie that was going to mock everything.
Yeah, it's a cult classic.
It's a cult classic, but yet over the years, I got to know Christopher Guest,
Hmm.
who was not only the actor, but they formed a band and they toured. And I had the good fortune to be at the final Spinal Tap show,
Really?
the
Wow.
very last one at the Great Woods Pavilion in Massachusetts. And that was a unique moment because I was seeing not the end of an era, but the culmination of a cult classic that went on stage and went on tour and finished. I've had other great experiences. I got to know artists. I designed light shows over the years, worked with a number of people like a Joe Cocker, a Stevie Ray Vaughan, other tours, the Moody Blues. And I didn't limit myself. And
Mhm.
wherever it was, again, I came away with memories of things that I will eventually put in my book, as you know, Joel, and we've talked about that. That I want people to understand that it's the story, and I hope it's a cool story, and I can tell you all of these. But I want you to realize that your story is whatever works for you. And some of the greatest artists in the world have been people I've associated with. I'm about to do something, and you're going to get a preview of something that will come up soon on my show. So I hope I'm not getting too far ahead. If everything works out, I will sit down with Roger Daltrey next week,
Oh,
and
terrific.
albeit by phone in this case, but we're working
Yeah.
on something in person. But it's not just to talk about the Who and Pete Townsend and the band and all of this. It's to talk about his support and his advocacy to help people, to help Teen Cancer, his Teen Cancer Foundation. So a friend who's on his board put us together. There's never a limit. I'm always wondering, what next can I do? Now, why
Mm.
would I take that, some people might ask, and put it on a political, basically a political talk show? Uh, uh, it's not about the politics. Life is more than politics. And I think my audience would enjoy hearing from an iconic figure in music about something that is very real world. And then along the way, we'll tell some stories. We'll tell some fun stories about it. And these are the things that, these moments come up. And as they find them, I want to share them with others because I want them to get what we used to kind of refer to as the cool factor. Wow, I'm listening to this. And it kind of goes back to having Alan Shepard tell a story about shedding a tear on the moon on my show. And then when the day he died, I had Walt Cunningham, who worked with him on Mercury 7. And a 5-minute interview turned into a 45-minute
Wow.
conversation
That's great.
about the two of them and the Porsche versus the Vet racing to Ellington Field and flying off in their T-38s. You suddenly develop these stories, or they
Mm.
develop, and you just share them with people. So cool moments. I've got a lot, and I've been fortunate that way. And a lot of these people trusted me to come on my show while their shows, whether a television show like The Sopranos was at the height or other shows. And it's just part of life. I've met people that I really, you watch The Honeymooners. Well, I can tell you this: Joyce Randolph, Trixie, gave great hugs.
That's
And she and I
good.
just hit it off on a personal level. And that
Oh,
was it. So those moments really stand out with me, but they're not limiting. Like I said, I hope we got an okay. We had a call the other day, and next week, someone I've always wanted to sit down with and talk about music is going to talk about something that matters to teens out there, to families.
hmm. Janet, Koch, Cook, people often see success and failure as polar opposites. In truth, they are related. I know of no one who was successful that didn't grow through failures. What do you think? Maybe you can share maybe the biggest failure you look back on in your life, if you want to respond to that.
Well, somewhere my own choices gone bad, some were circumstance. And I've been fired.
Hmm.
Your show ends, they make a decision at the network. That happened to me with my first syndicated talk show. Uh, so failure, you learn from it and you pick yourself up and you look for the next point. When music radio was changing and my particular format was changing, what do I do next? And
Hmm.
when that failed, when my station closed, I went out and looked for something else. I didn't want to be stuck. I've also tried businesses. I've had successes. I built my first company at 16 and a half out of a chemistry experiment, by the way, and I started doing lighting as a result. And I also had the failure of operations and organizations that I worked with because it just didn't work out. But I didn't lose. I failed, or the project failed, or it ended, but I didn't lose because somewhere along the way, I also learned things from doing it. I also
Hmm.
have done things that have been great successes that are not related to radio. Personally, I had a tile and marble company with a friend.
Hmm.
So if I ever lose my career in radio, I can go lay tile and put marble up. I'd probably take a little practice, and I'm a little older, so I'm not as young as I used to be, but I learned how to do that. And when that company ended and the time was over, I moved on to something else.
That was it. Rudyard Kipling in his poem "If." He says, "Treat both success and failure as imposters." I think that's the word he used. So it's I love your philosophy. Thank you,
They're
Janet.
part of the same equation.
Yes.
They both exist and they actually need to exist.
Now, when you were a young man in high school, you were part of the ROTC program, and I know that you've had a lot of interest in helping military vets. Tell us a little bit about that and what really sponsored that within you.
My father was a Vietnam vet, and I come from a family of service members in some way that go, well, as far back as I can think, even to the American Revolution. And it was in 1994 at the Vietnam Veterans Convention in Houston, Texas. My father had come down. I was living in Houston and doing a morning show at the time. And I remember going over to the convention hall and talking to some of the people there. And because it was my dad who served 2 tours in Vietnam, I decided I would take a talk show that I was doing I did 2 shows, and I had a talk show with a co-host. And I remember her asking a question I would never have asked of a veteran. And it was one of those questions that came from Vietnam and those accusations against service members, the baby killer.
Hmm.
And I remember in the moment she asked that question as we were doing the show, how embarrassed, offended, um, inappropriate, all those came out of it.
Hmm.
And while I always wanted to help, that moment made me decide, or helped me decide, that I needed to do more because people needed to have a voice as veterans. And now I serve on a number of boards, as you know. We have programs with American Humane, like the Pups for Patriots, reunification. I'm really proud of a project that we have raised the money to build, the first ever long-term TBI care facility in Omaha, Nebraska, the Dunham House, named for a Medal of Honor recipient. And the day I sat with Jason Dunham's parents, they had to take him off life support at Walter Reed
Hmm.
after he came back with severe injuries. Deb and Dan, his parents, looked at me and Colonel Folsom and others in the charity and said, "We're giving you the go ahead to do this." If I wasn't sitting here, by the way, I'd be sitting by the first print of his official portrait, which I have in my study at home, which will go up in the Dunham house. And the commitment leads to action. It has to. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to save somebody's life, but give the effort to helping others. And there is a reward in that. And there's a camaraderie that builds within a community. And to have their trust, that sometimes veterans will call me live on the air and say, "Hey, man, I know you're with this charity. Can you help?" And you know what? If I have
Hmm.
the ability to pick up a phone call the office, say, hey, Kate, this guy's in financial trouble. This lady needs this. And we, because of the generosity of the donors and the people that we work with and the corporations, say, we can help you. That's the continuation of the work. It goes on every day. It's the legacy of really the people who make this country great, because they stood up when they needed to, whether they were ordered to or whether they volunteered to do it.
And what are your what are you looking at in terms of, are you building places? I think you talked about one time buying a hospital and turning into a place for veterans, or
I've worked with a number of projects, and back in the George W. Bush administration, I was asked to be on a commission for the future of America's veterans. The person who led it was probably one of the most inspirational people, Everett Alvarez, who was the longest held prisoner in the Hanoi Hilton. There were other members of that group, and we were working with how to affect policy, how to make sure that the system functions correctly. And from that, I've met people along the way, and we've worked on housing for veterans. I do advise other groups. As you know, Helen Patton, General Patton's granddaughter, is one of my best friends. And the two of us are still working together because her grandmother was instrumental in standing up the MWRs for the Army, the rec centers that are now the MWRs. So along the way, these relationships have developed. People suddenly start working together, and I'm working on creating a universe of services. I want organizations to cooperate, not compete with each other. And that's what I'm doing now with the work. And it starts with the young kids, with the young Marines, and it works its way all the way to the oldest veterans. I work with the Iwo Jima Association. I've been to Iwo Jima with those veterans, and just to watch people who did incredible things at an age when right now we're worried about, well, and I say we, some are worried about whether their cell phone has enough power. The contrast is clear. And seeing people who fought for other nations, to sit there with a Japanese soldier that we captured on Iwo Jima, Tsurugi Akikusa, and have a conversation through a translator about his journey from Iwo Jima to the 70th anniversary and beyond. That's something that gives you a perspective. And you realize that whatever the circumstance, there are commitments that people make out there for whatever reason that they keep. And it starts with respect. It leads to understanding, maybe not even to agreement, but I can think of so many things they've taught me along the way. Jerry Yellen, for example. And here's by the way, a fun story and a real story tied together. So a little fun fact I'll share with your audience.
We got a minute left.
Jerry Yellen was a P-51 pilot who flew Mustangs off Iwo after we took it. Couldn't stand the Japanese, had outright hatred, but his family married into a Japanese family. His wingman was actually, had he lived in the last mission ever flown, would have been Scarlett Johansson's grandfather or granduncle.
Wow.
The world is a never-ending chain. That's my point, I guess.
Got a few seconds left. Sam Cooper saying, David, I've seen you on Fox. Fox is a propaganda purveyor, not a balanced fact-checked news source. What the hell are you doing there? You don't belong. This is not your style. Explain, please. You got about 30 seconds, and I apologize for the...
Then you should watch me, and I'll tell you something. Fox has never told me what to say, how to say it, but yet at other channels, I've been asked to couch my words, and I won't do it. So, look, you can agree, you can disagree, but I have never been limited, and I'm not a purveyor of propaganda. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I'll substantiate my position.
I'll tell you what, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you here, and a lot of fun on the Mischief Maker Show, and thanks so much for being a part of this.
And thank you, Joel. What you've done for education and history is great.
You're a dear friend. Thank you so much.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button, connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.